I'd like to welcome you. This is Afternoon Tea. I'm head men's golf coach Roy Edwards. We are joined today by our athletic director, Rick George, who's coming at us from the Champions Center today. Welcome, Rick.
Hey, great to be here, Roy. Excited to have an afternoon tea with you.
Yeah, there you go. I like it. So a lot of people may or may not know. I think you've got a wide variety of experience. One of the biggest ones, I think, in Buffs fans' mind is your experience and involvement with Coach McCartney and the great tradition in the late '80s and the national championship Orange Bowl victory. But you spent a lot of time at various roles in the PGA Tour. Talk to us a little bit about maybe a story or two or some experiences there that can relate obviously to the golf audience that's listening to us today.
Well, look, I had a lot of great experiences, and being with the Champions Tour first as the president, to have that experience to be with some of the greats in golf, and you'll appreciate these, and I think everybody listening will appreciate these. They both involved my wife. So my wife on a Monday night of Masters Week, I'm heading there on Tuesday to work and do my thing, and she's like, I want to go, and I'm like, well, it's not that easy. You just can't show up at the Masters. You got to have a ticket or a credential, and I don't have any. And so she calls Hillary Watson, who was a dear friend of hers, and said, Hillary, I want to come. Rick says I need a ticket. And she's like, well, you can be one of my children, and you can use our pass. So I drop her off at Tom Watson's house with Hillary, and Hillary's up showering, and Tom comes down, and I'm gone. This is Nancy telling me this. Tom comes down, and Nancy's like, oh my gosh, you've got a stain on your green jacket. And Tom was like, what? You got to help me get this out. So she gets it out, and so she's messing with Tom's jacket, and so she drives to the event, or drives to Augusta National, and as she's coming down Magnolia Lane, she's sitting in Hillary's lap in the passenger seat, and Tom's giving her a narrative of what this means and the history and the tradition. So that's how she started her experience in Augusta.
Gosh.
And then at the end of the day, we have the chairman's cocktail party. And, I see that picture of Arnold behind you. And so we're at this cocktail party, and, we're out there hanging out. And Arnold comes over, and he's having a conversation, and he puts his arm around her, and and they're talking, and I'm like, hey, Arnold, watch where your hands are going now. This is my wife, and we had a big chuckle over that. And so, the cocktail party ended, and we go into the clubhouse with Fuzzy, I think, and a few minutes later, in walks Jack and Barbara Nicholas, and they say to Nancy, hey, would you like to see he's got his grandkids, and said, would you like to see the champions locker room at Augusta? And she's like, yeah, I'd love to. So she goes in with the grandkids and Barbara and Jack, and he gives them a tour of that, and then takes them up into the crow's nest.
Wow.
And so I'm like, what an incredible experience that you just had, that I haven't had, or most people haven't had, that they would die to have, and you just happen to fall in. It's sitting on Hillary's lap with Tom, driving up Magnolia Lane, with Arnold under the big cypress at Augusta, or the Oak, or whatever it is, and then she's touring the champions locker room and going up to the crow's nest. And so she had a great experience there. And then the other experience that we had, and I know I'm rambling a little bit, but there's so many of them, is we're at Turnberry the year that Tom Watson finishes second, and she's out with Hillary looking at castles and all that and working. And I come back, at the end of the day, and there's a pitch and punt in front of Turnberry, as you know, and 13 holes, I think it is. And so we come back, and Nancy's like, hey, by the way, we're going to play the pitch and putt with Hillary and Tom. And I'm like, well, why are we doing that? She goes, well, we just decided that we wanted to do it, and Hillary convinced Tom, so it'll be you and Hillary against me and Tom. And we go out and we start playing the pitch and putt, and we're getting our butts kicked, obviously. And by the time we finish, and it's across the street from the actual golf course, by the time we finish, we've got galleries. And Nancy's like, what are all these people doing here? I'm saying, you're playing with the most treasured guy in American player in the history of British golf. And so, we had those great experiences, and it was a lot of fun. And, we've got a lot of memories from being on the Champions Tour and the PGA Tour, but those were just a few of the great things that we were able to do. And to see that Turnberry where Tom finished second was really special.
Yeah, that was a heartbreaking and just such a neat week. I think tears in my eyes have come twice during golf tournaments, and one was a Masters last year, and one was 11 years ago at the British Open. Watching that, growing up as a kid in Kansas, Tom Watson was my hero. So that's cool to hear, and all that. What is so Rick? One thing that you've come on board this year as I think it's probably the most prestigious honor that any athletic director or commissioner, anybody can serve in college sports on any committee, is a college football playoff committee. What are you looking forward to in that committee? Kind of talk about kind of your thoughts of is going into that. I'm sure you've had meetings already, but kind of go into a little bit of what that's going to look like, and take us under the hood of the college football playoff committee a little bit.
Gary Barta is the AD at Iowa, and he and I are good friends. And so being able to serve on that committee with him as the chair is going to be great. And I'm looking forward to it. And it is a thrill because, having, being able to be in that room talking about, the next national champion and college football playoff and what that looks like. That'll be fun. And, what I'm looking most forward to is having to recuse myself when they're talking about the University of Colorado football program.
Absolutely. Well, that's exciting. Tell us a little bit too, Rick, about, I think everybody in the world is going through an unprecedented time here, and we're drawing on experiences. What experiences have you drawn on to guide the athletic department? Family, there's a lot of dynamics in this whole thing we're trying to take care of, but what experiences, even though there's nothing directly related to what's going on possibly, that you've been able to draw on to help you in this that's been good?
When 9/11 came about in 2001, I was at the American Express Championship at Belle Reve Country Club in St. Louis, and so, I was a part of that, what the PGA Tour had to do with shutting down events and players not being able to get there, and the dynamics of that. And it was awful. And just trying to, navigate that and my family. And, that experience kind of helped me in kind of a crisis mode. And what do we do? And, how do I get back? I didn't have a rental car. I couldn't fly. There were no rental cars available. My car dealer actually bought me a car at a local Ford dealership so I could drive home and get back to New Orleans to be with my family and our staff there. So, having that experience was helpful. And then in 2008, being with the PGA Tour when we had an economic crisis back in 2008, and just seeing how Commissioner Fincham and his team, and I was on that team, to be able to navigate that situation, because if you recall, that was a really difficult time economically for our country, and the decisions that had to be made, and going through the thought process of what that would look like. That was probably important for me to help me today. Those two experiences have really helped me. And, staying calm during crisis is important, but also being communicative as you can be with a variety of different groups of people, whether it's your staff, your student athletes, your alumni, your donors, all those different things. Those two experiences really helped me understand, looking at leaders and how they handled certain things in those time periods. And I read a lot of leadership books on crisis management and that. So, having those experiences have been really helpful.
Thanks for coming, Rick, to Afternoon Tea. It was a lot of fun, some good stories, and go Buffs.